Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. Today I'm going to tell you a story of a young 23-year-old and how by the time he was 27, he owned multi-million dollars worth of real estate. He's an immigrant. He had a severe stutter and did not get any money from his parents to help him buy his first investment. I'm going to get into that story today, and that story is my story. I'm Juan, and if you're new to my channel, I've been on YouTube for over 4 years, and this year we just got to 10,000 subscribers. And as a celebration of my 10,000 subscribers here to YouTube, I wanted to share with you my own personal story. If you've been watching my channel, I've interviewed investors, I've covered the market, I've taught people how to invest, how to analyze a property. And today, I'm surprised I've never done this. I'm going to take you through my journey, who I am, where I come from, how I learned what I learned, and more importantly, how you could take something out of today's story that I believe you could do it as well. So no matter where you're at, whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you own millions of dollars already, I hope you enjoy my story. So let's hop right into it. So my story starts off in La Victorina, Zacatecas. So if you could tell, it's kind of right in the middle of Mexico. My parents grew up there. My parents lived in a small ranch in La Victorina. There they had no running water, no electricity. They had a river that went through the town, and my mom would wash her clothes and our clothes on boulders. As you may have seen in what you would see like in a third world country is exactly what I want to describe for you. And so this was, when I was born, was in 1979. And so during that time, my parents had a total of 8 siblings. My dad had built the house that we lived in, dirt floors, so no carpet. My dad made the furniture that we had. We lived in such a rural part of Mexico that it was hard for them to get cooking utensils or any of that kind of stuff. My parents were farmers. They grew beans, corn, and it was a very dry and very desolate area, and life was really hard. Now, during that time, it was very common for the men of the household to go to El Norte. And what they call El Norte is just going to the US. You go to the US, make money because there's opportunity in the US, and send money home to help out the family. So my dad did that for a lot of years, leaving my mom at home with 8 kids to raise. And so that is kind of my humble beginnings. Is I remember life in Mexico. I was young. In this picture here, that picture of that little kid holding someone's hand, that's me. That was the last picture that I took in Mexico, and that's my younger sister, Candy. There's a few photos there. It's a picture of my parents when we finally made it to the US. And my mother, to her credit, put a lot of pressure on our father to say, now it's time to take the entire family to the US. And so we go on to this long journey of going from Zacatecas, which is in the middle of Mexico, taking this train 3 days to get to the border of Mexico and the US. At that moment, we stayed with my uncle who lived in Mexicali. My uncle loaded us up in his truck, took us to the desert, and dropped us off where we connected with a human trafficker. They also call him a coyote. And you pay, at that moment, you pay $1,500 a person. $1,500 a person to help you get across the border. And we were able to do so. Now, the first time we did walk all night, and it was very hard. I was 4, and my youngest daughter, my youngest sister was 2. And so my mom and dad, family of 8, were all young, and we're crossing this dangerous desert in the middle of the night, hoping to evade capture. Well, we didn't. We were caught by immigration, and we were sent back to Mexico, and we had to do this all over again. Fast forward, we're now living in the US, and I grew up in a small town called Lemoore. And Lemoore is near the Central Valley of California. It's south of Fresno, so very, very small. The population during the time that I lived there was about 17,000. One high school, no mall, that type of situation. But life was good there. We finally got to see what a television was. We got to see running water, electricity. When we first got here, my dad, because he had been spending time working up here, we lived in the living room with another family. So there was a small 2-bedroom apartment. When we got here to the U.S., early 80s, 1983, we lived in the living room until my dad was able to save enough to put us up in our own apartment. Was our early days. During our summers in the U.S., in the Central Valley, it's very common for someone who just came from Mexico, doesn't speak English, doesn't have a lot of contacts, they work in the farm fields of the Central Valley. And so my dad did that, my mother did that. Now in the summers, the siblings, I was the sixth child, and so a lot of my siblings would go to work in the summer, doing the same thing, working in the onion, the cabbage, just all the fruit trees that are out there, picking garlic. And so when I was 9, it was time for me to go contribute and work in the fields as well. Everyone knows the size of the top of a garlic bulb. Well, we clip that with these clippers, and we fill in a 5-gallon bucket. After you fill in that 5-gallon bucket and you fill it to the very top, you've earned $1 for the day. They give you a card, they punch your card, and that kind of keeps track of your progress. As a 9-year-old and as a 10-year-old, I was averaging about $10 a day, meaning that throughout the day, that's how much I was able to contribute. Now, we never got to keep the money, nor were we expected to, but we were all contributing, my siblings and I, to help my parents, help pay the rent, help buy groceries, that type of stuff. So I learned hard work early on. And quite frankly, I didn't really know anything different. My siblings went to work, my mom went to work, my dad went to work, everyone worked, and some of my older siblings had a second job. During the harvest of the garlic, which is where I worked the most, is during the hottest times of the Central Valley. So every day it's common for it to be about 105 degrees or more. And we start working at 5 in the morning and we stop at noon, because then it gets so hot they don't want anyone out in the fields after that time. And so that was part of my upbringing. And I just wanted to share with you that, because a lot of people have been following the channel. They don't know everything about me. Should they trust me? Where does he come from? I just wanted to give you a little insight to what makes me, to what motivates me. One of the reasons why my family came to the U.S. is for opportunity and education. My parents only had a 6th grade education, so that this was something that they always wanted for themselves. Wasn't possible, and they had such a large family, they had to work, and the only thing they could do is to make sure that they put enough pressure on the eight kids to go off and do well in high school, but definitely get into college. And so that's where I'm gonna hop to next, and I'll catch you guys up on my investment journey. This is a picture of me at my graduation. I have a degree in accounting from Cal State Long Beach. At this moment, I was, out of the 8, I was the 6th child to get a degree. And so at this point, my mom and dad are feeling very, very proud. Out of the 8, 6 have them. And the only reason the other 2 don't have them, well, they're still in middle school and high school. They're my younger siblings. And so at this point in my life, I got to learn a lot from my brothers and sisters. Not only did they work hard in the fields and in their other jobs, but they actually worked really hard in the classroom. And so all of this work ethic doesn't just get applied to one part of their life, it got applied to every part of their life. And so at this point, I had really good grades and I was heavily recruited in the accounting world. At this moment, I was honored to be recruited by the biggest 4 that there were: Ernst & Young, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Deloitte & Touche. I decided to sign on with Deloitte. So as a senior in college, I knew that I had this career waiting for me. I was going to become a CPA. And during my senior year, I start working with this mentor of mine, Mark Milan. Mark Milan is responsible for teaching me everything that I know about real estate. And I was at a fork in the road. I had this job offer from Deloitte, great salary for someone coming out of college in 2003. And I met Mark, and Mark at that moment was a multimillionaire. And he gave me a job to just be more of his errand boy and go to Home Depot, meet a tenant here. I spoke Spanish, so that helped with some of the Spanish-speaking tenants. Mark got used to having me around. And right when I was about to graduate in June of 2003, Mark said, how about you forgo this career in accounting and work with me? And at first I said, no, I want this Deloitte and Touche name as part of my resume. I want to do this. And I told him no at first until I spoke with a few other people. And a few other people gave me some advice at the time that said, if you become a CPA, you're going to cap your salary. Or that's what I was told. You're only going to make so much as a certified public accountant. But if you learn the world of investments, there's really no ceiling. And I thought about it for some time, and I decided to actually take the path least taken. And I called up Mark and I said, you know what, I'm going to take you up on that offer. And I had to call Deloitte and say, thank you so much for that job offer, but I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to do it. And I told them why. They weren't happy, but that was the decision that I made. Now, the one thing that Mark promised me was, hey, Juan, if you work with me, I'm going to teach you how to become a millionaire as well. And that's where my journey begins, is with my investment story, is how that process happened. So I'm going to show you a few of the properties that I bought early on, okay? This is 2150 Ohio. It's in Signal Hill. I bought condo F. Now, if you remember, I graduated college in June of 2003. And a few months later, I closed on my first condo. Now, back then, you might be thinking, well, how the heck did you buy this first property? In 2003, they were easing up all the loan requirements, and I was able to buy a property. I know some of you are going to say, hey, that was an unfair advantage. But during that time, someone could go get a loan, and under what's known as a stated income program, you simply told them the type of money that you made, but that no one verified. Now, ultimately, this was the reason why the real estate market collapsed at that time. But this also was a window that I got to take advantage of. I didn't cause this. I simply played by the rules. And so at this point, I was able to buy a 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Signal Hill. And the advice that I got from Mark was, hey, in order to add value to that condo, convert the formal dining room into a legal bedroom. Go down to the city of Signal Hill, pull the permits, and by then I was working with Mark full time. And Mark was a real estate investor, and I learned a lot with him. And so I convert this 2-bedroom, 2-bath property into a 3-bed, 2-bath property, raising the value. Now, back then, adding an additional bedroom to this type of property raised the property by $35,000. And that may not sound like a lot to some of you, and to others, that might be a lot, right? But that was a lot to me. So this one was my first investment. I was 23 years old. Now, some of you might be thinking, hey, you're really young, so how was it? Were you scared? I was definitely scared. I was young. I was fresh out of college. I had something to prove. I wasn't really certain at this time in my life that I made the right decision by choosing real estate investing career versus becoming a CPA. I was having apprehension. A lot of my classmates at school said, you're an idiot. You bypassed the one job that everybody wants and you took this career. At that moment, real estate was very like used car salesman type thing. It wasn't really like what it is today. We didn't have YouTube back then. And so I needed to prove people wrong. I needed to prove to myself that if I want to become a millionaire, I need to take this risk. Now, granted, I had a mentor. Mark was my mentor. He was the one that said, you should go do this. He didn't help me do it. He didn't give me any money, but he was the one where I'm like, well, I saw him doing it. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, I got to go take the risk. And that's kind of some of the advice that I've been giving you as well. I go off and I sell this property not too long. And then two things happened. I ended up buying 2 properties right after this. Now, by now, I'm 24 years old, still super young. I bought another condo for me to live in, and I bought that one with my brother. And then with the extra money, I bought a triplex. We still own this one. This one's on Pasadena Avenue in Long Beach. It's a front house with 2 rear units. Same thing. I started realizing the more and more that I was spending time with Mark, I was learning from Mark. And the one thing that I saw from Mark is that Mark knew how to analyze a property, but he also knew to act. He took the risk. He knew that trends would show us that buying real estate is how ultimately you're going to build wealth. And so at this point, this was my 3rd property, and I was 24 years old. So it turns out that my 2nd condo wasn't in the safest neighborhood. There was a lot of crime, a lot of police, and it just wasn't safe for my brother and I to be living there. And I started looking, well, maybe it's time that we sell. So in a lot of these condos, we weren't really living in them for a long time. Sometimes 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year, but we weren't staying in there that long. The market was going up, and so that did help me. A lot of times people are like, hey, Juan, you talk about appreciation a lot. Well, appreciation is how I built my wealth. At no point has cash flow been this big change in my life. It hasn't. And so I've always looked for, because I got to work with Mark and a lot of the folks that were like him and a lot of the people that he hung out with, everyone had the same story. Well, I bought this a while ago. I made it better, increased the income. Now it gives me cash flow. And now, by the way, it's doubled in price. And now, by the way, I bought it for $500,000. Now it's worth $1 million. Or I bought it for $1 million. Now it's worth $2 million. I kept seeing doubling of prices the more and more that I asked questions and the more and more I talked to people that did this. If you don't do this, you don't have this type of story. If you don't do this, you think it's hard, you're extra cautious, you overanalyze, and you talk to someone who says it's a bad time to get into the market. And therefore, you never end up getting into the market. All I want to show you is I kept saying yes to the opportunities in front of me. Here's another condo that I bought. This one's in 2004. It's a 1145 Roswell. Beautiful condo. At that time of my life, I loved it. I ended up selling that condo. No, I actually kept that condo and I moved a family in. That condo was near Wilson High School, and this lady came. She was a single mom, had a son who had just gotten into Wilson High. She wanted him to be able to walk to school. So we ended up renting that condo to her. And then by then I'm 25 and I buy, I guess now it's my 3rd condo. And this one was 1001 Belmont Avenue. And I got to live in this one as well. By this time, I've owned several properties. I'm selling some of them. I'm taking some money off the table, right? And I'm reinvesting it. We found this property. It was a 4-unit building, nice part of Long Beach. And I buy this one with Mark. And I put up my portion of the money. He puts up his portion, and we both go get the loan together. So this was my first fourplex that I bought in 2005. And it's kind of funny now that I'm the fourplex market leader, and I help a lot of people get started on their first fourplex purchase. But my first fourplex was in 2005 as a 25-year-old. This is a house that I bought as a 26-year-old. After I got married and we had our first child, this was the home that we brought our first child home to. And here's a 5-unit building that I bought. And again, I bought this one with Mark as well, is we both would go 50-50 and we both put together our money and go and buy this one. So here's a 5-unit building. It's on Pacific Coast Highway. We owned this one for a very long time. This one was a good building to us. And here's what I want you to know. In a lot of my situations, I could have waited to, well, I only want to own that one myself. Or I always thought, well, the sooner that I could buy the property, the sooner that I'm going to have appreciation. And so if I own something that's 50% or maybe sometimes even 30%, that's okay too. That's okay too. At least you're getting in what I call, you're getting into the appreciation game, okay? And here's what I've noticed with a lot of these rentals, and here's what I've told you in the past videos, is what ends up happening is this. Year 1, year 2, not a lot of cash flow. Year 3 is a little more. And the longer you own it, because some of these properties that we still own, now they make a lot of cash flow, but we've owned them for a very long time now. So I always tell people, hey, when we're looking at Southern California, the prices are high. They're high right now. Is that a reason not to buy? No. Is there a lot of cash flow? No. And I know you don't want to hear that, but it's a fact. And it's better that I tell you the truth versus you watching someone else or talking to somebody else and they're going to promise you something that's not possible. None of these buildings that we bought at the time that we bought were making tremendous cash flow. That wasn't the reason for the buying of the property. Don't forget, there's 2 reasons why we're buying real estate: cash flow or appreciation. And I have always said this: I'd rather have the appreciation. That's where wealth is being made. And now I know something I didn't know back then, is that the cash flow comes. It comes later. I don't need the cash flow right now. But the wealth creation starts now. The wealth creation has to start now. This is in 2008. By now, the market has crashed. Values have tumbled down. And I saw more opportunity. And here's one. It's 1104 Mahana. This property I never really liked because it's located off of an alley, which is common in Long Beach. Some properties are off of the alley. They're less desirable. They're harder to rent, but the values are good. And so I was able to buy this with another friend. And I said, Chad, how about we partner up? You go get the loan for this property and we'll go 50-50. And Chad said, deal. So we bought it. And on this one here, we actually did some of the work ourselves. I'm not very handy, so it was something I didn't really want to do. But here was, by the time I was 29, I still continued to buy. And then I did the same thing with my friend Calvin. We bought this property, 735 Martin Luther King Jr. in Long Beach, 2 units. Again, prices had pummeled. I saw opportunities and I sought out those opportunities. Why am I telling you this? Well, a couple reasons. I want you to know that when I'm teaching you how to build wealth, I've built the wealth. When I'm talking about becoming a millionaire, I became a millionaire by the time I was 27. Okay. So I do have something to teach. I didn't just go watch videos or read books and now I'm going to regurgitate what they've saying. A lot of what I've been talking about is speaking from the experience that I've had through all the years that I've done it. And I've seen the highs. I've seen values go down. I've seen values go up. I've seen values go down. I've lived in a time where we didn't have rent control and now we have statewide rent control. Here are some of my biggest takeaways when it comes to real estate. 1, I got this from Mark. It's not get rich quick, it's get rich guaranteed. Okay, powerful. It's not get rich quick, it's get rich guaranteed. I got that from Mark. I said, Mark, did you make that up? He said, I don't know. I'm like, who do you think told it to you? He's like, I'm not sure. So chances are I'm gonna give him credit for that. It's not get rich quick, it's get rich guaranteed. It's a very powerful statement to me because I've seen it. It's been part of my life. It wasn't fast. But if you say yes to those opportunities, if you say yes to taking on risk, if you say yes to taking on debt, you're going to have that growth. A couple other things that I want you to know that I've just learned through the years is that the income of today is not the income of tomorrow. Why is that important? Because a lot of you are making investment decisions on a property right now because it doesn't make enough income. The price is too high, doesn't bring enough income. And my question to you is, when you say that, are you only going to own that property for 1 year? Because that income changes and it changes annually. And what I want you guys to know is that the income of today is not the income of tomorrow. I made that one up because I kept telling people, a lot of people would say, hey, I'm not going to buy it. The rent's not enough. And I'd say, well, are you going to own this for the next 10 years? Yeah, I am. Okay. What do you think the rent's going to be 10 years from now? Oh, well, then it makes sense. Of course. It's just right now, it's hard for you to see that. Many times I've told people that when we're looking at real estate, they put so much emphasis on cash flow. And what I'm going to tell you is cash flow is a small piece of the puzzle. The biggest piece of the puzzle is appreciation. That's where wealth and millionaires are being made. Now, For some of my folks watching this out of state, this message may not apply to you as much. There are states that appreciate and have historically appreciated much, much higher at a faster rate than other states. Some states don't appreciate at all. But in this situation, this is for the folks that are looking for appreciation. And some other parts, there's more cash flow opportunities. I've never sought those. I've never sought to go out of state because I want cash flow. I still have more wealth to build. And ultimately what I'll do is I will, once I'm older, much older, I'll sell what we have here in California, and then I'll go Ohio or somewhere else, and then we'll get much larger units. Again, it's not about how many doors you have. That's nice, because a lot of us are like, hey, you should have more doors. How many doors do you have? That doesn't mean you're wealthy. You could have 100 doors in an area that doesn't appreciate. That doesn't mean you're wealthy. But what means you're wealthy is when you're in an area where things are appreciating and you have net worth to show for it. When you own investment real estate, you're owning a business, but a business that you don't have to go through every day. So you don't have to check on it every day. You don't have to check in. There's no clocking in, clocking out. Okay, I put in my 8 hours. Nothing like that. You get the building stabilized. You do the repairs that it needs. You fill it with tenants. And you kind of sit back. Now, they call it passive income. It's not as passive. There is some work that has to go to it, but it's not as much as your regular day job. So there you have it. I went through kind of my first part of my career, my early 20s, to walk you guys through my journey, the decisions that I made, who motivated me, and do I believe, when I talk to people and they say two things, either they say I'm too old, which I don't believe you are, and they say I'm too young. I just showed you what I did by the time I was 27. Do you think you're too young? Because if I could do it, you could do it. If anyone thinks that, hey, anyone who's built wealth clearly came from wealth, that's not the case. I told you about my mom and dad. They've since passed. They got all 8 kids through college. Biggest accomplishment in their lives. I'm sure they never thought that would have even been possible. But they got it through. I walked you through us crossing the border, talked to you about me picking garlic as a kid, getting that hard work instilled inside of me that I keep through today. I hope you appreciated my story. I enjoyed telling you about it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. For some of the folks that are here in Southern California and you want to work with me, please reach out to me. Go to our website, send us a message. That's where I want to direct you, is go straight to our website. For the folks that are out of state, thank you guys for commenting. For the folks that are like, I'm in Dallas, I'm in Cincinnati, do me a favor. Go to my website, fill out a questionnaire on our website so that I could learn more, so that I could better refer you. We have nationwide affiliates, and I want to make sure that for anyone who wants to build wealth, for anyone who saw this and says, you know what, I'm going to do the same thing, I'm going to tell you that you can. For anyone who says that the American dream is over, you're wrong, because I've heard it, and I don't like hearing that. You're wrong. If I could do it, you could do it. That's all for now.